Either you are a citizen by birth or citizen by naturalization. All of us are citizens of the country. And when you are a citizen of the country, we fall inside the same basket and we have the same law. We have the same right, the right of vote, the right of being a good citizen for the country.
Before the 1st of January 2013, if a person was born in South Africa of a single permanent resident parent, that person was born a South African citizen.
You may be asking yourself, what is a born South African citizen? Guys, tell me, in South Africa, who got the birthright citizenship? Who is actually qualified to have a printed birth certificate? When you give birth to a child in South Africa, you have to go to Home Affairs and actually declare the birth of your child. But now, when you declare the birth of your child, who is entitled to have a printed birth certificate? Who is entitled to have a handwritten birth certificate in South Africa?
When people say we must get rid of everyone who's undocumented, you will get rid of millions of South Africans
who are legitimately
South African. Critical.
Because we actually don't know that there's a lot of South Africans that are undocumented. And I think people are falling into these traps.
Sensationalism,
where, undocumented, you're not South African, but we're hearing now that actually in some instances that is not the case. Those are South Africans.
Guys, I did not know that in South Africa we still have undocumented South African. I actually know that we have undocumented foreigner in South Africa, just like in any country in the world. We have undocumented foreigners. You know, as an African living in the foreign land, our first priority is actually to have a proper documentation. Children born by a foreign national in South Africa may not have a citizenship by birth, only if the parent is holding a resident permit before 1st January 2013. Therefore, the child can benefit the right of birth being a citizen of South Africa. If one of the parents is actually a citizen of South Africa, automatically from birth, that child will benefit the right of being a citizen of South Africa. Follow me till the end. I believe you'll get your answer on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Like and share the video. Fokou Media, wherever you go. Fokou Media, c'est votre chaîne. Abonnez-vous à la chaîne, likez et partagez. Hello guys, my name is Alphonse Fokou. If you are new to this channel, please do subscribe, like and share the video. This channel is for African living in the foreign land. This channel is for foreigner. This channel is for traveler and business people. If you're actually a foreigner, especially if you're living in South Africa, I think the first thing we need to look at it is to make sure we have a proper document. Make sure that we are legal in the country, right? Tell me guys, what do you remember on this date of 1st January 2013? Before 2013, in South Africa, as a foreigner living legally, you could apply and obtain your resident permit between 3 to 5 years. If you were a foreigner and holder of a resident permit before January 2013, and you give birth to a child in South Africa, that child was going to be a citizen. Home Affairs were going to issue to your child a printing birth certificate. That child was going to be recognized inside the population register of South Africa if one of the parents was a holder of resident permit. Guess what? That law was changed in the 1st January 2013. After 1st of January 2013, a child who was born by a single parent who actually a holder of resident permit was not longer or is not longer a South African by birth. To be a South African by birth, the child must actually have to have one of the parents who is actually a citizen of the country. But if one of the parents is not a citizen of the country, that child will be having a handwritten birth certificate. This child who was born between two parents who are not South African is actually going to obtain a handwritten birth certificate. While the child who was born by a South African citizen or by a single parent who is a South African or by a holder of a resident permit will be issuing a printing birth certificate. If you are holding a resident permit before January 2013 and you give birth to a child, meaning that child got the right of birth citizenship. If one of the parents holding a South African citizen, your child will benefit a birth citizenship. Listen to this video till the end. Believe me, you may educate yourself about the citizenship in South Africa, because the law on the citizenship in South Africa become more difficult. That's why most of foreigners remember the date of 1st January 2013. If you are a South African and you are living in Nigeria, if you are a South African, you're living in Zimbabwe, if you are a South African, you're living out of the country, and then your partner is not a South African, as long one of the parents is South African, even though your child was born out of the country, that child still benefit the birth of right to be a citizen of South Africa. Check the specialists of immigration. They will explain it to us more. I'm not a specialist. I'm not an immigration officer, but I'm just sharing the information with you guys. Yes, it's possible to be a citizen from birth, even though your parents are not all of them South African.
Common belief and common perception from the layman is that if you are born in a country, you automatically become a citizen of that country by virtue of birth. But clearly this is not the case.
It's certainly not the case in South Africa. Before the 1st of January 2013, if a person was born in South Africa of a single permanent resident parent, that person was born a South African citizen. After the 1st of January 2013, in order for a person born in South Africa immediately to be born a South African citizen, at least one parent must be a South African citizen. In fact, if a person is born anywhere in the world, South Africa, Kenya, Russia, United States, and one parent was a South African citizen at the time of that person's birth, that person would have been born a South African citizen. If one parent was a citizen at the time of the birth and is not subject to a birth registration, in law that person would be a South African citizen. Citizenship is a creature of statute, and if the statute does not enable the person to tick all the boxes for citizenship, for a qualification for citizenship, the person is not a South African citizen or doesn't qualify for citizenship.
Birthright citizenship. And I guess the common example that we all make reference to is the United States. If you're born in the United States, there are no ifs, ands, or buts. You will become an American citizen.
That's quite right. There are few countries like that. But citizenship is becoming more restrictive in various parts of the world, including South Africa. As time passes, our laws are becoming stricter and stricter. It's always been the case that if a permanent resident of South Africa has resided in South Africa continuously for at least 5 years, that person would qualify for citizenship thereafter.
Let's focus, Gary, on this particular case. In this instance, the gentleman was in South Africa, from my understanding, on a work permit. His partner was here on a visitor's permit. They then have given birth to their 3 children in South Africa. But what the court said here is that they failed to establish the grounds for citizenship in terms of either birth or nationalization. Explain that to us. The birth part you have. Talk to us about the nationalization.
Yes. So, as I said just now, a person born in South Africa and neither of their parents are permanent residents or citizens, just like in the Polokwane case you've referenced, are not born South African citizens. And therefore, they won't be issued with printed birth certificates. Printed birth certificates are certificates printed with information held by South Africa's so-called population register, administered by the Director General in terms of the Identification Act. And it is only information of citizens or permanent residents that's uploaded into the population register. And that explains why persons born in South Africa who are not born citizens do not get printed birth certificates. They get printed.
So Gary, in this instance, Gary, what do they get? Because the child has been born, they've got to be noted in one way or another. What does the hospital give to the parents?
Well, they certainly, their births are noted. That information is kept on a birth register, but that information is not kept in South Africa's population register, so they are given handwritten birth certificates, not printed birth certificates. And in this particular case, as far as I understand, the parents wanted printed birth certificates. Printed birth certificates are only issued to South African citizens or permanent residents, and therefore these children were neither. So they didn't qualify for South African citizenship by birth because they were not born of parents who were citizens or permanent citizens at the time of their birth.
Guys, tell me, do you know that in South Africa we got a lot of South African who's actually not registered as a South African? Do you know in South Africa we got a lot of South African which is not recognized in the population register? South African who are not recognized in the population register. What is the pure reason that we got South African who actually is not recognized as a South African? They don't have a birth certificate. South African who doesn't have a birth certificate. South African who doesn't have an ID. South African who actually doesn't have any document. Do you know in South Africa we still have people who are not recognized in the population register? I mean, South African who doesn't have birth certificate. South African who doesn't have ID. And we have the doula who actually stop people to go to the hospital because they don't have document. What make them sure that the person they are pushing from the hospital, that person they are pushing from the school is not a pure South African? Is it because you don't have a document? Is it because you don't have an ID? Is it because you don't have a birth certificate? Is it that all will make you foreigner? Is it that all make you foreigner? And then if you check very well, the doula, after finish with foreigner, who next? After foreigner, do you think they're gonna chase people from different region, from different province? So if you're from KwaZulu-Natal, you're not supposed to be in another region. I hope we're not gonna reach on that level. But guys, you know, the Minister of Home Affairs have been working very hard so that all South African can be listed in the population register. And to be in the population register, Home Affairs must do the job. So we can see today that the elephant job that the Minister of Home Affairs got on his desk is to make sure all South Africans are actually listed in the population register. Guys, stay tuned till the end of the video. Follow me and give me your opinion below. Let's share. Let's listen to the Minister of Home Affairs.
Silent crisis that we need to get to as a country is undocumented South Africans. Yeah. And we can get there through all of the things we've discussed, making Home Affairs own offices more reliable, giving you access to services in more locations and through your technology eventually. And what hopefully will happen over time is that the burden on Home Affairs officials will be less because routine things will be taken care of through technology and through other channels. And I haven't even mentioned home deliveries. We're going to introduce the ability for you to have your ID delivered to your house. Why must you go?
What is that thing? A PIN code? What is that other thing?
OTP.
OTP. Yes.
We're more advanced than OTP. That's old stuff. That's old stuff.
60.
A routine transaction like picking up an ID. You no longer have to go and queue.
Awesome.
people who want to apply for a new passport, for example, can renew it through their banking app. Suddenly you're taking pressure off Home Affairs. You're taking people out of the queues. And let me tell you who remains. It's Abongile.
Sure.
Because they are the people who need help for problems that are complex, that are not routine. It's not, I have an ID, I lost it, I need a new one. That's routine. But someone who's lost their parents and who is unable to prove their identity or is struggling to do so requires focused attention from Home Affairs and probably from other departments as well. So this is my real dream at the end of all this, is to get everyone who has a routine case to actually mostly take care of themselves.
Naturally.
Think about SARS. Think about how the tax system works. 90% of people go through auto assessments online. They take care of themselves. But I can tell you, the remaining 10%, those are the complex cases.
All hands on deck.
And we want to use the same model. And then we have great examples like India, a country also of around 1.4 billion people, who actually within 2 years documented the entire population. And they did it. They had these little suitcases with cameras and fingerprint scanners, and they went into communities. And that's where I want Home Affairs to end up. So we can go to that community in the Eastern Cape that you mentioned, so that we can go there and say, all right, Home Affairs is now here, and we want to find all the children here that are undocumented. You sit with the community, and I would love to get to in other words, once we get to this point, we've succeeded in many other things because now we've got capacity. So I would love to get to this point and start exploring things that have worked in other parts of Africa, for example. You bring a community together and you say, this child is undocumented. Who's this boy's mother?
There we go.
This is, okay, maybe the mother's away. Where's their sister? Okay, and you start putting together genealogy and a family tree, and you bring that dignity of a state that actually recognizes you. That says your family matters.
Sure, your identity.
You're no longer invisible. We are going to bring that to you. So that is all part of Home Affairs at Home, even for the most disadvantaged, most rural communities who at the moment are just completely left behind because we are consumed by routine transactions.
Currently, there's also another problem where people get born in hospitals and they walk out without verification because even though you are born in South Africa, maybe your mother or your father, it's mostly the problem when your mother is a foreign international, mostly Lesotho, for example, in the Free State. My experience is that your mother is from Lesotho, but the father is here. And then somehow in the system there isn't a coordination of your identification. And then if your dad passes and your mother is still in Lesotho, you're undocumented. So what you're doing is super cool.
And we assisted in the WCED admissions process this year. And what we often find is that a lot of the kids don't have birth certificates. And you have to upload that document so that the WCED can actually identify the person or the learner in this case and actually see, are they registered in the country. So if you are already dealing with that on such a low scale level in communities that don't have access to these things, you probably are going to make it so much easier for Sawiwe in her department, who has to deal with these admissions on a provincial and national level in this case, where learners actually have an identity.
To school,
and
they're not just a number on the system. They have a name, they have a surname, they've got a father, they've got a mother, and you can recognize that dignity within that learner.
It's all about dignity, and that's the opportunity we've got. But again, the key is to go to the source of the problem. That's where I think, as I say, if we can get to that stage where we've got the capacity to do this in a focused way, the knock-on effects is what's experienced by the education sector, for example, because the source wasn't addressed. And to your point, now to be fair, there has been progress towards having birth registration functionality in more hospitals. But again, we're looking at ways that technology can make it more efficient, make it easier, and get the confirmation that we need. It is a major problem. I do think even if we get all of the tech right, this is one of those areas where we're going to have to go into communities. To ultimately find all those South Africans who are undocumented. And I just want to say this, Don, it's a critical point for this discussion. When people say we must get rid of everyone who's undocumented, you will get rid of millions of South Africans
who are legitimately
this
South African.
Is critical. So the state needs to first do its job to ensure that everyone who is entitled as a South African to identity is documented. And then we will know what the population is of people who legitimately are undocumented and shouldn't be in the country. But this is a point that often gets lost in the debate.
100%.
And we cannot be a country that wants to chase away millions of South African children, because that's where you'd end up with this kind of blanket
Leon, that is such an important point, because we have some really useless parties running around saying undocumented. And I think this is such an important point because we actually don't know that there's a lot of South Africans that are undocumented. And I think people are falling into these traps
sensationalism
where, undocumented, you're not South African, but we're hearing now that actually in some instances that is not the case. Those are South Africans.
It's absolutely right, Yolo. And that's why we have a responsibility to be honest about the scale of the problem we have. And this isn't a problem that started yesterday or a year ago. It's been decades in the making, and it is time that we work in a focused way to resolve it. But I can tell you now, sloganeering is going to get you nowhere. Populism is going to make the problem 10 times worse because South African citizens will be swept up in anything that is based on this. And ultimately, the solution is exactly what we're talking about. Smart reforms that use technology to make up where we don't have capacity, and then going in a concerted manner with the goal of documenting South African citizens who are entitled to that dignity. It is a disgrace. It is a disgrace that you can be in South Africa with a family who are South African and somehow the state isn't able to recognize or enable you. It is an infringement on your dignity. And yes, it's a huge problem, but I believe we are on track and we must do it. This is the thing about reform. It's not cheap. It's not easy. You have to do it systematically. We can't do this at the scale required today because we're consumed by people coming to collect an ID. But once we're able to deal with that problem, we move to the next phase. And eventually, as I say, this would be a marker of enormous success for us.
This will be the end of our video. I hope you did like it. Guys, I hope you did like the video. Channel of African living in the diaspora. My name is Alphonse Fokou. I'll see you next time. Hope you stay a member of this family. Stay the member of this family. Share the video to your friend. This could be a good information to another person. As long as we talk about foreigner, we talk about African living in the foreign land, we talk about people traveling, we talk about business people, we talk about technicians. My name is Alphonse Fokou. Please let me see you in my next video. Ciao.